All right, my friends, let us learn the Dvar Malchut for this week. Parshas Tazria. This was a speech given by the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and this was after Passover, Tavshin Nun Aleph. This year, because it's a long year, an extra month, so everything is sort of pushed back a month. So this, the Rebbe said back over there, was after Passover, but it's very, very relevant. Let's look. Mitzora. Behemshech l'medubar, in continuation to what was said, Umudgash, and it stressed very much, b'zman achron, lately, al derech tzorech, the necessity, bepulas u'shekol echad v'echad, of each and every Jew, lasot kol talui bo, to do everything, lahavi et Mashiach tzidkenu, to bring the Mashiach, actually take over miyad mamash. Mashiach. All right, again, just to re-stress the importance of Mashiach, that the Lubavitcher Rebbe took this on himself to remind the Jewish people of the tremendous, essential importance of Mashiach. But to the degree that the Rebbe stressed it so much that he's basically the only one that's really so, adamant about it, and he has enemies from all sides of Judaism talking about it, mostly religious Jews. Why are you stressing Mashiach so much? And who says Mashiach? Well, I mean, it's a law, the Rambam, Maimonides, that he's like the last word and the only word on Mashiach, and he stresses, he points out that Mashiach is undoubtedly the most important feature of Judaism. Just like without Moses, the Jewish people would not have gotten out of Egypt, and they wouldn't have received the Torah. It wouldn't have happened. As soon as Moses wasn't there, they all worshiped the golden calf. It's the same thing. Mashiach is going to be like Moses, but much more so. And he's going to awaken Jewish true identity and make big changes in the world and big changes in the Jewish people. This is going to happen. And despite the fact that, and even more, when going out of Egypt, not all the Jews got out of Egypt. Only 1/5, it says, Chamushim. And by Mashiach, everybody's going to go out. So everybody going out means even these people who are vehemently against Mashiach and against the Rebbe, against Chabad, against Judaism, against common, whatever you want to call it, those people will also wake up. Suddenly they'll wake up. It's called doing tshuva, return to Jewish consciousness. Everybody. And Mashiach is going to make it happen. And without that, it's not going to happen. Right? The only way the Jewish people are going to come to the land of Israel, the only way that all the Jews are going to come back to Israel, and even more, even the Israelis will come back to Israel, is going to be Mashiach. That's the only way. So Mashiach is not just very important, it is the most important aspect of Judaism that there is. It's the whole sum total of Judaism, like Moses was the sum total of the Jewish people. Right? Without Moses, that's it. We wouldn't have any Judaism today. We would still be slaves in Egypt. So the same thing as our very base of our Jewish identity depends on Mashiach. So Mashiach is very, whether you want to or not, whether you take it or not, whether you accept it or not, that's the fact. Okay. So we have to talk about Mashiach, even since now in our days. That we are finishing the month of Nisan. Like I said, this is 1 month afterwards. We're just finishing the month of Adar. And when the Rebbe said this, it was a year that Tazria and Mitzora would join together. So there was one less month, so everything was okay. This year, Kulo Kala Ketzi, says the Rebbe, that all of the projected times when Mashiach is supposed to come have already finished. What's called Ketzi Yamim, the end of the bad. Ketzi Yamin means the beginning of the good. Kapeshuto Mamish. Uvarai, certainly. Should take of miyad that immediately the Mashiach is going to come. And each and every person will show with his finger, point. V'hinei say zeh, bo, hinei Mashiach is here. B'kabar bo, that he already came. But regesh lifnei regazeh, immediately. Happened in 1 second. Yesh l'bo'er, we can explain. Hadgashas inyan geula. This whole stress of the whole idea of the future redemption. Upulat kol echad ve'echad min Yisrael, and each and every Jew, b'havat geula, to bring the redemption, b'inyani yom Shabbat Kodesh. That he has to come on this Shabbat. The Rebbe is speaking, of course, on Shabbat. So the Rebbe is not saying the Mashiach is going to come really soon. The Rebbe says the Mashiach is supposed to come right now. The Kol Rosh, first of all, b'inyani Torah, regarding Torah shaychos, which are relevant to Shabbat Kodesh, Parshat Shavua, Kol Parshat, this Parshat which is Tazria. What's Mashiach got to do with Tazria? It's talking about leprosy, the spiritual leprosy we just talked about. They came to Pirkei Avot, and also Pirkei Avot. We have a custom in Chabad, also all religious Jews, as far as I know, that they learn Pirkei Avot, the chapters, Ethics of the Fathers, called the chapters of the Fathers. They learn one chapter every Shabbat. One chapter every Shabbat, from Passover until Shavuot, but we learn a lot also. They learn until Rosh Hashanah. V'gam also b'tochneinu shel zaman, gam b'negil kol hachodesh, the whole entire month. Let's discuss what is so important, how Mashiach is reflected in this Torah portion and in Pirkei Avot, that we're not learning it now, but nevertheless, it was learning in a normal year and also in the month, and etc. Let's see. This week's Torah portion is called Tazria Mitzora. Especially, it stresses the redemption. Why? Tazria. Tazria, Isha ki Tazria v'yolda zachar. It says a woman, when she gives seed and she gives birth to a male, you do it like it's known. Shaleida, the whole idea of giving birth. Leida. That's how this week's Torah portion starts off. A woman, when she gives seed and she gives birth to a male child. That's how it starts off. So it says she has to be impure for a certain amount of time, etc. This idea of giving birth, this hints at the future redemption. Like it says in the prophet, where does it say in the prophet? Isaiah. What does it say in Isaiah? It says, Yolda Tzion et Baneh. Tzion gave birth. That's the idea of Mashiach coming. Yoledes Zachar gives birth to a male. This hints at the chazak, strong. Male is a strong aspect. This is the future redemption, and it'll be complete. All the Jews will wake up. Gula Nitzchis, it'll be an eternal redemption. She'en acharei galus. There won't be any destruction of the temple. The third temple will be forever. Like it says, Shir Chadash. It won't be Shir Chadasha. It won't be like a song that comes from us. It'll be a song, Lashon Zachar, that comes from God. It'll be strong, powerful. Al Yedei Mashiach Tzikina, by means of the Mashiach. Hainu, Sheyolda Zachar. This gives birth at the Leidat Neshamat Mashiach. This is referring to the giving birth of the arrival of the Mashiach. The Mashiach will be the highest level of soul possible. Highest level of soul. That's Tazria. Mitzora. Mitzora is talking about leprosy, which really, that's this week's Torah portion talks mostly about this leprosy thing. Kidis, like it says in the Gemara, Ma Shem Shel Mashiach. What's the name of the Mashiach? If you look in the Gemara in Sanhedrin, here, Sanhedrin, Tzaddik Ches, and Tzaddik Ches, and page 98 in the Gemara Sanhedrin, it has all these laws. It talks about in great length Mashiach, right? And what the name of the Mashiach, and Mashiach always going to come, and what's he going to do? All these different midrashim and things like that about Mashiach. It's in the word. So it says, what is the name of the Mashiach? Chivra Debeirav Shemo. His name is Chivra. Chivra is Mitzora, Tzorat, because Tzorat is different shades of white, discoloration on the skin. Shene'amar Ochen Chalinu Hu Nasan, on the Isaiah. Is it not so? Ochen, our sickness he bore, our pains he suffered. V'anachnu chashavnu negoa, and we considered him to be like a leper. Muka Elokim Mu'una, smitten by God and suffering. Ma'aseh money. What's the sign of the Mashiach? It says Yosef Beini Ani Sovle Chaloyim. It says over there that Yeshua ben Levi, he was one of the great Amoraim. These people all had the power of raising the dead, even some of the Amoraim. And Yeshua ben Levi, he would regularly see Elijah the prophet. And Yeshua ben Levi said to Elijah the prophet, I want to see Mashiach. So he said, okay, go over there to the gates, I guess the gates of Rome, wherever it was, and he's sitting among the lepers, the sick people. And he's suffering, and he has a lot of little bandages he put on himself, on his sores that he's got. He's suffering over there. And go and ask him when he's coming. So he said, when are you coming? And he said, I'm coming today. It's a long story. He said, I'm coming today if you listen to my voice. It says, if you listen to God, what God says, okay. In any case, he talked to Mashiach. Menugayim, Bahu Nami Menuga. It says the Mashiach is sitting among the lepers, the smitten people, and he's also going to be smitten. Like it says, Bahu Mechalel, that he suffers because of our sins, because see the Chalinu Hu Nasa, and it says our disease who he bore. In more detail, like it says, this will be the law of the Mitzora, of the leper, the spiritual leper, on the day that he is purified. Just to let you know, this disease of leprosy, what it says in the Torah, it's not really a disease. I mean, the person doesn't feel sick or anything like that. It's a spiritual thing. We just finished learning about it in Lichuti Torah, that it's a sign of some sort of spiritual impurity in the person. It comes on the skin so the person can fix it up. Nevertheless, it's impurity. Some people even call this Tazria Mitzora. These two Torah portions, Tazria Mitzora, the first one, Tazria, that we're learning this week, talks about the disease, the plague, what do you want to call it, the impurity of Mitzora. And Mitzora, next week, it talks about how to cure it. In any case, Mitzora is the name of the Mashiach in the time of exile. Even though that on Mashiach himself, he will be the ultimate completeness. Like it says, Yaskil Avdi, that's the sentence I told you about before. Yaskil Avdi, Yoram Venisa V'Govamod, he's going to be, consider my servant. God saying he is high, elevated, very, nevertheless, nevertheless, he suffers and he is in pain for the exile. The pure fact that Jews, what makes him sick? The exile, just like Moses. He was so pure, but the Jewish people, there was a golden calf that brought Moses down. The same thing, Mashiach is suffering because of the exile of the Jewish people, the confusion of the Jewish people. That he gets healed. Kai al mamado u'matzavo shel Mashiach. This is going to be the situation of the Mashiach. When he gets cured, means he's going to cure all the Jewish people. He's going to take all the Jewish people into the true, complete redemption. But Tzorech Lavin, we have to understand. What do we have to understand? Hakesher, the connection between Tazria and Mitzora, that most of the years we read them together. This week we don't. This year we read separately. The word Tazria shows on a good thing. This is giving birth. A woman, she gives birth. Tazria, this is a continuation. She gives birth. This shows on the future redemption, that God will redeem all the Jewish people, giving birth, like the Jewish people went out of Egypt. That was the birth of the Jewish people. This will be a rebirth. The Ilu Hashem, but the name Mitzora, which is next week's Torah portion, that on this shows the opposite of being pure. Yesh tzorech pula miyucheres. You have to do something special. in order to cause them to be pure. Tazria seems to indicate that the thing is finished. The Jewish people will be born. Mitzora indicates the Jewish people are sick and that they have to be healed. This shows on the exile. How can you join them together? Or let's say in our Torah portion, our year this year, Tazria comes first. That's the redemption. And afterwards comes the sickness, Mitzora. Question number one. Question number two. The main question is, Tazria, and afterwards Mitzora. At first, since the woman gives birth, that's talking about the future redemption. So how can it possibly be that afterwards he's sick? The question I just asked, Mitzora. And the four questions. Third question, Alder says similarly, based on Parshios on its own, the name of the Torah portion and its content. What's the name of this week's Torah portion? This week, Tazria. Tazria, that's the name. It's a good thing. Woman gives birth. You just read a couple of sentences in, and what's the whole Torah portion talking about? It's talking about all the laws of the sickness of this disease. Shemor al Galus, that indicates on exile. Next week's Torah portion is called Mitzora. That's a bad thing. Mitzora means the disease. That's the name of the Torah portion. What's the content? The name of the portion, Torah portion, talks about Mitzora, that implies the exile. The continuation is talking about how to purify, how to cure a person from this Mitzora. That's talking about the redemption. The whole thing is all mixed up. At first glance, since the name of the Torah portion, this usually expresses the content of the Torah portion. It should be better. It should be more, fitting that the Torah portion that talks about the plague, which is exile, it should be called Mitzora. And the Torah portion, which talks about purifying it, namely going out of the exile, that should be called Tazria. But it's not. This week's Torah portion is called Tazria, which is a wonderful thing. And the whole thing is talking about the sickness. And next week's Torah portion is called by the name Mitzora, which is a bad thing. And the whole thing talks about how to cure it. Fourth question. Alder says similarly regarding the name of the Mashiach. Since the Mashiach is going to be the Redeemer of all the Jewish people, Lama Madgishim, why do we stress, right over there in the Talmud, in Sanhedrin, why does it say that the name of the Mashiach, this infinitely, ultimately important Jew, that's going to bring all the Jews back to their senses, why would you say that, and the main thing is redeeming the Jews, that is talking about curing them, why stress in his name, Gullus, exile, that he's called Mitzora? I mean, good, true, he's taking the Jews out of exile, but let's forget the past. The Mashiach is going to make a new future, a new world. Why should he be called by the name of Mitzora, of a leper? Why? So we have now 4 questions on this. Right. First of all, Tazria seems to be a good thing. And Mitzora is a bad thing. How can they come together? Most years they're joined together. How could they be joined? Question number 2. How can Tazria, which means a good thing, come before the bad thing? How can the curing come before the sickness? First of all, a person is sick, Mitzora, and then comes Tzora. And that's not the order that they appear in the Torah. Question number 3. The name of each Torah portion seems to be the opposite of its content. The name Tazria is good, the content is bad, talks about the disease. Mitzora is bad, and the content is good, talks about how to heal it. And finally, the fourth question, how can we call the Mashiach a leper? The whole thing of Mashiach is to make a new future. Let's forget about the exile, the past, the bad things. the negative things. Mashiach is going to make a perfect, healed, healthy world. Why call him by the name of a leper? And this and much more we'll discuss tomorrow. Be with us at 3 o'clock. God bless you all. Have a good day with Mashiach now.